The smell hit first, antiseptic mixed with something sweeter, almost floral. Lilies, maybe? The kind people brought to hospitals when they didn't know what else to do with their hands. Dr. Sarah Chen kept her eyes closed, letting the scent fill her lungs, sharp and clean and wrong. Wrong because she knew this smell, had known it 37 years ago, in a room much like this one, where her mother had held her hand and promised everything would be fine. But her mother was dead, had been dead for 3 years. The EKG machine beeped, steady, insistent, alive. Sarah's fingers twitched against cotton sheets, the fabric rough in a way that Egyptian cotton never was. Her Egyptian cotton sheets in her downtown apartment where she'd fallen asleep after the gala, after the third glass of wine, but after Marcus had called to say he couldn't make it to her award ceremony next week. Again, the Presidential Medal of Science, the highest honor in her field, and her family would find another reason not to come. The beeping intensified. Her heartbeat, she realized, racing. Easy, a voice murmured. Young, female, not her cardiologist's raspy baritone. You're awake. That's good. Can you open your eyes for me? Sarah's eyelids felt weighted, but she forced them open. Fluorescent lights blazed overhead, making her squint. The nurse leaning over her had a round face, dark eyes, couldn't have been more than 25. She wore her hair in a ponytail, and a small butterfly pin gleamed on her collar. Sarah knew that pin, had seen it before, on Nurse Rodriguez, who'd taken care of her after the car accident when she was 16. But that was impossible. Nurse Rodriguez would be in her 60s now, if she was even still nursing. What? Sarah's voice came out as a croak. Her throat felt raw, unused. What happened? You were in an accident. The nurse, her name tag read Rodriguez, checked the IV line. Car ran a red light. You're lucky. Broken arm, some bruising, mild concussion. You'll be fine. Broken arm. Sarah looked down at the cast, white and pristine against her skin. Her left arm, the same arm she'd broken at 16, learning to drive, when her brother had been teaching her in the parking lot behind the old mall. When he'd been checking his phone and hadn't seen her overcorrect, hadn't warned her about the light pole. But James hadn't taught her to drive. Their father had, months later, after she'd already gotten her permit through school. James had been too busy with his startup, the one that had failed spectacularly, leaving him bitter and resentful for years. The beeping grew frantic. Deep breaths, Rodriguez said, her hand gentle on Sarah's shoulder. You're okay. You're safe. Safe? The word echoed strangely. Sarah forced herself to breathe, to count. 1, 2, 3. Her gaze drifted to the window, where late afternoon light slanted through half-open blinds. Beyond the glass, she could see a parking lot, cars glinting in the sun. And beyond that, a billboard advertising the new iPhone 4S, the iPhone 4S released in 2011. Sarah closed her eyes, opened them again. The billboard remained impossibly anachronistic, impossibly familiar. Siri's voice seemed to echo in her memory. Let me search that for you. The excitement when she'd first held one. A college graduation gift from her parents, one of the last gifts they'd given her before they'd started forgetting. Birthdays, ceremonies, achievements that didn't involve Marcus or James or her younger sister Lily. What's the date? Sarah whispered. Rodriguez glanced at the chart. October 15th, Saturday. You've been out for about 4 hours. The year, a pause. Rodriguez's eyebrows drew together. 2011. Are you feeling confused? That can't happen with concussions. I'm 16. That's right. The nurse's voice softened, the way adults spoke to children they thought might be fragile. Sweet 16. Your parents are in the waiting room. They've been so worried. Both parents, together. Not divorced yet. That wouldn't happen for another 3 years. After the screaming matches about money and blame, and whose fault it was that the company failed. After James moved back home and started drinking. After Lily got accepted to Juilliard and their mother remortgaged the house to pay for it. After Sarah had learned that her achievements, National Merit Scholar, full ride to MIT, published research as an undergraduate, meant nothing compared to her siblings' crises. The door opened. Her mother rushed in first, still blonde then, her hair not yet streaked with the gray that would come from stress. Her father followed, taller than Sarah remembered, his shoulders not yet stooped with defeat. They looked young, impossibly young. Her mother was crying. Baby. Her mother's hands cupped Sarah's face, warm and trembling. Oh, sweetheart, we were so scared. The touch felt real. The tears were real. Sarah could smell her mother's perfume, Chanel No. 5, the one she'd stopped wearing after the divorce because it had been too expensive. Too much a reminder of better days. This couldn't be real. But the ache in her arm was real. The antiseptic smell, the roughness of the sheets, the way her father's hand rested on her shoulder, heavy and protective, before he stepped back to let her mother fuss. "We called Marcus," her mother said, brushing hair from Sarah's forehead. "He's on his way from basketball practice, and James wanted to come, but we told him to stay with Lily. She's got that recital tomorrow, remember?" Tomorrow. Sunday. Lily's first solo performance, the one that had launched everything, the one Sarah had missed because she'd been studying for the SATs, determined to get a perfect score, to prove she was worth something. She'd gotten that perfect score, 1,600, and her parents had said, "That's wonderful, honey," and then spent an hour talking about Lily's performance, how the judges had been impressed, how she might have a real future in music. "I remember," Sarah said quietly. Her mother smiled, relieved. "Good. The doctor said you might be a little foggy, but you're okay. That's what matters. You're okay." Am I okay? The question should have been simple, but Sarah found herself studying her mother's face. Younger, unwrinkled, the laugh lines around her eyes still faint, found herself cataloging details she'd forgotten. The small scar above her mother's left eyebrow from a childhood fall, the way she'd chewed her bottom lip when she was anxious, the gold bracelet on her wrist, the one Sarah's father had given her for their 15th anniversary. The one that would be sold 4 years from now, quietly, to pay for James's second failed business venture. "Sarah," her father's voice, tinged with concern. "Honey, you're spacing out." "Sorry," she blinked, forcing herself to focus. It's a lot." "Of course it is." Her mother squeezed her hand. "You've been through a trauma, but you're going to be fine. The doctor said 6 weeks in the cast, and then physical therapy. You'll be good as new." 6 weeks. Sarah had spent 6 weeks in a cast before, remembered the itching, the frustration, the way people signed it with messages she'd thought were important then. "Get well soon. Can't wait to see you back at Mathletes." Hags. Have a great summer. Summer. But it was October. Fall of her junior year. "Your phone's been buzzing," her father said, pulling it from his pocket. An iPhone 4, not the 4S. The screen was cracked, from the accident probably. "Lots of concerned friends." He handed it to her, and Sarah stared at the device, smaller and heavier than she remembered smartphones being. The crack spiderwebbed across the top right corner. She pressed the home button and the screen lit up. 47 unread messages. She scrolled through them with her thumb, the gesture automatic despite the strangeness of the older iOS interface. Most were from people she barely remembered. Jessica from biology, Tom from debate team, Rachel, her lab partner, who would move to California after graduation, and they'd lose touch. And 3 from Marcus, each more worried than the last. "Heard what happened. You okay?" Mom said. "You're in the hospital?" "I'm coming be there in 20 Marcus." 17-year-old Marcus, still gangly and awkward, before he'd filled out in college. Before he'd become the golden child, the basketball star, the one with the scholarship to Duke and then the consulting job that paid 6 figures by the time he was 25. Before he'd learned to make promises he wouldn't keep. The door burst open. Marcus appeared, still in his practice jersey, sweat-stained and breathing hard like he'd run the whole way. His hair stuck up in wild tufts. His sneakers squeaked on the linoleum. "Sarah!" He pushed past their parents, his hands hovering over her like he wanted to touch her, but wasn't sure where it was safe. "Jesus, are you okay? Mom said someone ran a light." "I'm fine," Sarah said automatically. The words felt strange in her mouth. She'd said them so many times in her first life. "I'm fine." When she was overlooked. When her achievements were minimized. When she stopped expecting her family to show up. Marcus exhaled, his shoulders dropping. "Thank God, They said you hit your head, I thought. Just a mild concussion. I'll live." "Don't joke." But he was smiling, that crooked smile she'd forgotten he used to have, before life had worn him smooth and polished. Mom and Dad were freaking out. I've never seen them drive so fast. Sarah glanced at her parents. Her mother was dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. Her father had his arm around her, holding her close. They looked united. In love, still. The way they'd looked in old photographs, before everything had fallen apart. "They said I could probably go home soon," Sarah said, "once the doctor checks on me one more time. Good. Marcus pulled a chair closer to the bed, sat down heavily. You scared the shit out of me. Us. You scared us. There was something in his voice. Genuine fear, genuine relief. Sarah studied his face, searching for the dismissiveness that would come later. The way he'd stop answering her calls because he was too busy. The way he'd forget her dissertation defense because he had a big presentation. The way he'd say, "That's great, sis," when she told him about her MacArthur Fellowship, and then spend an hour talking about his promotion. But right now, at 17, he just looked like her big brother. Scared, relieved, present. I'm okay, she said again, softer this time. Really. They brought her home just after sunset. The house looked smaller than she remembered. Or maybe she'd just grown used to thinking of it as small, the way people revised their childhoods to fit their narratives. It was a 3-bedroom colonial in a decent suburb, with a lawn that needed mowing and shutters that could use paint. Middle class, comfortable. The kind of house that would be worth twice as much in 10 years, if they hadn't sold it in the divorce. Her mother fussed over her, insisted she rest on the couch while dinner was prepared. Her father brought her water, adjusted the pillows behind her back. Marcus hovered nearby, flipping through channels until he landed on a college football game, the volume low enough not to disturb her. Lily emerged from upstairs, violin case in hand. She was 13, all legs and elbows, her hair in braids. She froze when she saw Sarah. You're okay, she said, and it sounded like an accusation. Disappointed? Sarah meant it as a joke, but Lily's face crumpled. That's not funny. She set down her violin case with a thump. Mom said you could have died. But I didn't. But you could have. Lily's voice rose, cracking on the last word. You could have died, and I was just practicing scales, and I didn't even know. And, hey, Sarah held out her good arm. Come here, Lily hesitated, then crossed the room and perched on the edge of the couch. Up close, Sarah could see she'd been crying. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her cheeks blotchy. I'm sorry, Sarah said. You're right. It's not funny. You always do that, Lily muttered. Make jokes when things are serious. Did she? Sarah couldn't remember. In her first life, she and Lily had grown apart after high school. Lily had gone to Juilliard, become consumed by music. Sarah had buried herself in research. They'd seen each other at holidays. They exchanged pleasantries, drifted into the polite distance of siblings who shared DNA but little else. I'll work on that, Sarah said. Lily looked at her strangely. Are you sure you didn't hit your head harder than they thought? Probably. From the kitchen came the sound of cabinets opening and closing, the sizzle of something hitting a hot pan. Her mother hummed tunelessly. Her father laughed at something Marcus said. Normal sounds. Domestic sounds. The kind Sarah had stopped noticing, and then stopped hearing entirely. Your recital is tomorrow? Sarah said. Lily nodded. Yeah, Mom said you probably shouldn't come because of the concussion. You need to rest. Do you want me to come? Lily blinked. I mean, only if you're feeling okay. It's fine if you can't. I know you have that SAT prep thing anyway. The SAT prep thing. Sarah had forgotten about that. A Sunday study session with her tutor, Mrs. Kowalski, who smelled like mothballs and spoke in relentless encouragement. Sarah had gone to that session in her first life. Had spent 3 hours working through practice tests while Lily performed for an audience of proud parents and adjudicators. Had come home to hear about how brilliantly it had gone. How Lily had a gift. How they were so proud. No one had asked about the SATs. I'll skip it, Sarah said. Lily's eyes widened. Really? Really, I want to hear you play. But you've been working so hard. Mrs. Kowalski said. Mrs. Kowalski will understand? Would she? Sarah couldn't remember. Couldn't remember because she'd never tried to reschedule. Your recital is more important. Lily's expression shifted through several emotions Sarah couldn't quite name. Surprise, maybe? Suspicion? Something that might have been hope. Okay, she said finally. Thanks. She stood, picked up her violin case, started toward the stairs. Then she paused, turned back. I'm glad you're okay, she said quietly, even if you were being weird. She disappeared upstairs before Sarah could respond. Dinner was spaghetti with marinara sauce from a jar, garlic bread from the freezer section, bagged salad with Italian dressing. Her mother apologized for the simplicity. I would have made something nicer, but with everything that happened, but Sarah barely heard her. She was too busy watching, cataloging, remembering, and comparing. Her father sat at the head of the table, still in his work clothes, tie loosened. He worked in pharmaceutical sales then. Good money. Not great, but steady. Enough to support a family of 5, so to save a little, to plan for college funds that would never quite stretch far enough. Marcus ate like a teenage athlete, piling his plate high, going back for seconds. He talked about his basketball game next week, the rival school they were playing, how coach thought they had a real shot at regionals. Lily picked at her food, too nervous about the recital to eat much. She kept practicing fingerings on the edge of the table, her left hand moving through invisible strings. Her mother divided her attention between everyone, making sure Marcus had enough, encouraging Lily to eat, checking that Sarah wasn't in pain. She'd always been the hub of the family, Sarah realized, the one who held everything together, who remembered everyone's schedules, who made sure no one was forgotten, until she couldn't anymore, until there was too much to hold. Or too many crises, and she'd started triaging, saving her energy for the emergencies, for James's failures and Lily's successes and Marcus's achievements, for everything except Sarah, who was fine, who was always fine, who didn't need her mother because she was smart enough and capable enough and independent enough to manage on her own. "Earth to Sarah," Marcus said, waving a hand in front of her face. "You okay? You've been staring at your plate for like 5 minutes." She blinked. Looked down. She'd barely eaten. "Sorry, still a little out of it." "That's normal with concussions," her father said. "The doctor said you might be foggy for a few days. Just take it easy." Take it easy. But her mind was racing, trying to make sense of the impossible. She was 16 again. Somehow, impossibly. And she knew what came next, the choices she'd make, the path she'd follow, the ways she'd prioritize achievement over connection, excellence over belonging, the ways her family would learn to overlook her because she never seemed to need them. After dinner, she excused herself and climbed the stairs to her room. Her childhood bedroom. The walls were pale blue, decorated with posters of the periodic table and a photograph of Marie Curie. Her desk was cluttered with textbooks and scientific journals she'd probably been too young to fully understand but had read anyway. Her bulletin board held a collection of awards and certificates: Math Olympiad, Science Fair, Honor Roll. She sat on her bed, felt the give of the old mattress, so different from the memory foam in her apartment. Her apartment that didn't exist yet. In a city she hadn't moved to yet, working at a research institute she hadn't been hired by yet, none of it had happened. Or it had happened, and now it was unhappening, rewinding, giving her a chance to, what? Do it differently? But how differently could she do it? She'd worked so hard in her first life, had achieved so much. Presidential Medal of Science, the highest honor, recognition of her contributions to cancer research, the breakthrough treatments that had saved thousands of lives. She'd done important work, meaningful work, and she'd done it alone. The thought hit her like a physical blow. Alone, at the ceremony where she was supposed to receive the medal, her family would be absent again. Marcus had a business conference in Singapore. Lily was on tour with her quartet. Her parents were busy settling the estate after her father's death. Another thing that hadn't happened yet. Wouldn't happen for 15 more years. A heart attack at 67 that had been as sudden as it was devastating. James would be the only one to show up. And that was only because he was unemployed again and didn't have anywhere else to be. He'd sit in the audience, resentful and bitter, and afterward he'd make some comment about how nice it must be to be so successful, while some of us were struggling. She'd accepted the medal, smiled for the photographs, shaken the president's hand, and felt nothing but hollow. Her phone buzzed. A text from Rachel. "Hope you're feeling better. See you Monday? Monday. School." She'd go back to school, back to her classes, back to the routine of being the smart one, the achiever. It was the girl who didn't need help because she had everything figured out. Except she didn't. She'd never had it figured out. She'd just been so focused on proving her worth through accomplishments that she'd forgotten worth could come from other things. From showing up, from being present, from letting people see her struggle instead of pretending she was fine. "I'm fine," she'd said, over and over, until everyone believed it. Until they stopped checking. Sarah opened her messages to her mother. The last text was from earlier today. "Don't forget to text when you get home safe," a reminder Sarah had apparently ignored before the accident. She started typing a response, then stopped. In 6 weeks, the cast would come off. In 7 months, she'd take the SATs and get a perfect score. In a year, she'd start applying to colleges. MIT would accept her. Or So would Stanford, Caltech, Princeton. She'd choose MIT because it was the best, because it was prestigious, because it was where she could do the most important work. And her family would be proud, in that distant way people were proud of achievements they didn't fully understand. They'd tell their friends, post about it on Facebook, frame her acceptance letter, but they wouldn't know her, wouldn't know the late nights she'd spent crying in the lab when experiments failed, wouldn't know about the professor who'd tried to steal her research, wouldn't know about the loneliness that had become so familiar it felt like home, because she'd never told them, because she was fine, because she didn't need them. Sarah deleted the message she'd started, typed something else instead. Love you, Mom. Thanks for being there today. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Finally, love you too, sweetheart. Get some rest. The heart emoji looked strange. Her mother didn't use emojis in her later texts, had learned to communicate in efficient, abbreviated sentences. Okay, busy. Talk later, the language of someone overwhelmed, stretched too thin. But that was later. Right now, her mother still had time, still had energy, still had hope that things would work out, that her children would be happy, that the family would stay whole. Sarah set down her phone and stared at the ceiling. Water stains marked the corner. The roof had leaked during a storm, wouldn't be fixed for another year. She remembered lying here, in this exact spot, planning her future. College, career, Nobel Prize, maybe, if she worked hard enough. She'd had it all mapped out, a straight line from here to greatness. She'd followed that line, achieved that greatness, and it had cost her everything else. The question was, what would she do differently? Sunday morning arrived with pale sunlight and the smell of pancakes. Sarah woke disoriented, her left arm throbbing dully before she remembered. The accident, the hospital, the impossible return. She dressed awkwardly, one-handed, in jeans and a sweater. Downstairs, her mother was at the stove, flipping pancakes with practiced efficiency. Her father sat at the table reading the newspaper, actual newsprint, the tactile thing Sarah had forgotten existed. Marcus was texting someone, probably a girl, judging by the way he kept smiling at his phone. "Good morning, honey," her mother said. "How did you sleep?" Okay, a lie. She'd barely slept. Had spent hours staring at the ceiling, processing, planning, so wondering if she was losing her mind. Is Lily up? In the shower. She's been up since 6, poor thing, so nervous. Her mother slid pancakes onto a plate, added butter and syrup, handed it to Sarah. Eat. You need your strength. The pancakes tasted exactly like Sarah remembered, slightly burned at the edges, the way her mother always made them when she was distracted. Sweet and comforting and ordinary. "I'm coming to the recital," Sarah announced. Her mother paused mid-flip. "Are you sure? I thought you had SAT prep." "I canceled." Canceled? But Sarah, Mrs. Kowalski, will understand. Lily's recital is more important. Her father lowered the newspaper, eyebrows raised. "That's very mature of you." Was it? Or was it selfish, using her foreknowledge to rewrite history? Was it to try to fix relationships that had slowly eroded through years of small neglects and missed moments? "It's what I want to do," Sarah said. Marcus glanced up from his phone. "Who are you, and what have you done with my sister?" Funny? No, seriously, you never skip studying. You turned down a date with Tyler Chen because you had a chemistry quiz. Tyler Chen. Sarah had forgotten about him. The boy who'd asked her to homecoming, who she'd said no to because she'd had too much homework. He'd asked Jessica instead, and they dated through senior year, and Sarah had told herself she didn't care, that she didn't have time for relationships anyway. Tyler Chen, who she'd never thought about once in her adult life, who had probably mattered more at 16 than she'd let herself admit. "People change," Sarah said. Apparently. Lily appeared in the doorway, already dressed for the recital in a black dress Sarah vaguely remembered. She looked pale, her hands shaking slightly. "I think I'm going to throw up," she announced. "You're not going to throw up," their mother said automatically. "You're going to be brilliant, just like you were at the last recital." That was different. That was just the school concert. There are going to be judges. Important people. Mr. Steinberg said, "Mr. Steinberg is a crotchety old perfectionist who wouldn't recognize talent if it hit him in the face," their father said. "You're going to be fine." Lily didn't look convinced. She sat down at the table, stared at the pancakes their mother placed in front of her, didn't touch them. Sarah remembered this. The nerves. And the way Lily would work herself into a state before performances. In her first life, Sarah had been gone during this, at SAT prep, and had come home to hear how Lily had nearly backed out, how their mother had to coax her into going, how she'd almost ruined everything. But she hadn't ruined anything. She'd been brilliant, just like their mother said, and Sarah had missed it. "Want to practice one more time?" Sarah asked. Lily looked up, surprised. "Really?" "Sure, I'll listen, give you feedback." "You don't know anything about music." "I know when something sounds good." Lily hesitated, then nodded. "Okay, yeah, that might help." They went up to Lily's room, smaller than Sarah's, with posters of violinists Sarah didn't recognize and a music stand in the corner. Lily's violin rested in its case on the bed, the wood gleaming in the morning light. Lily took it out with careful hands, rosined her bow, tuned the strings with the unconscious expertise of someone who'd been playing since she was 6. She positioned herself, the violin tucked under her chin, bow poised. "It's Mendelssohn," she said. "Violin concerto in E minor, just the first movement. 3.5 minutes. I'm ready." Lily closed her eyes, took a breath, and began to play. The first notes were tentative, shaky. But then something shifted. Her shoulders relaxed. Her bow moved with increasing confidence. The music swelled, filled the small room, spilled out into the hallway. It was beautiful. Achingly, impossibly beautiful. Sarah felt something in her chest tighten, felt tears prick her eyes. She'd heard Lily play before. At concerts, recitals, even at Carnegie Hall once. At when Lily's quartet had performed there, but she'd always been distracted, checking her phone, thinking about work, waiting for it to be over so she could get back to her real life. She'd never just listened. When Lily finished, she lowered the violin, opened her eyes. "Well, you're going to be incredible," Sarah said, and meant it. "They're going to love you." Lily bit her lip. "You think so? I know so. You're just saying that because you're my sister." "I'm saying it because it's true." Sarah stood, crossed the room, hugged Lily with her good arm. "You're so talented, Lily. I don't tell you that enough, but you are." Lily stiffened in surprise, then hugged her back. "Thanks," she whispered. "That means a lot." They stood there for a moment. Two sisters who would grow apart, but hadn't yet. Who still had time to be close if they chose to be. Then Lily pulled away, wiping at her eyes. "Okay," she said. "Okay, I can do this." "You can definitely do this." The recital was held in a church basement with fluorescent lighting and folding chairs that squeaked when you sat down. The smell of old hymnals and coffee lingered in the air. Parents filled the seats, chatting in low voices, checking programs, taking photographs with digital cameras that would be obsolete in a few years. Sarah sat between her parents in the third row. Marcus was on the other side of their mother, already looking bored. Their father had his video camera ready, the bulky kind that recorded to mini DV tapes. The first few performers were competent, but unremarkable. A girl played a Bach prelude with technical precision, but no emotion. A boy struggled through a Vivaldi piece, his fingers fumbling on the strings. The audience clapped politely after each one. Then Lily walked onto the small stage. She looked tiny up there. Fragile. Her violin almost too big for her 13-year-old frame. She adjusted the music stand, positioned her feet, took a breath that Sarah could see even from the third row. The first notes were pure and clear, confident. All her nervousness had vanished, transformed into something else. Focus, perhaps, or the kind of courage that came from knowing you were doing what you were meant to do. Sarah watched her mother lean forward, hands clasped, watched her father raise the camera, zoom in on Lily's face, watched Marcus set down his phone, actually paying attention, and she watched Lily transform. No longer the gangly 13-year-old, but someone older, someone who belonged on that stage. The music poured out of her, each note perfect, building to a crescendo that made the hairs on Sarah's arms stand up. When she finished, there was a beat of silence. Then the applause started. Genuine, enthusiastic, loud enough that Lily's cheeks flushed pink as she bowed. "That's my daughter," Sarah's mother whispered, tears streaming down her face. Their father was beaming, still recording. Marcus was clapping so hard his hands must have hurt. And Sarah felt it, the joy of witnessing something beautiful, someone she loved succeeding. Without distraction, without resentment, just pure, uncomplicated happiness. After the recital, they waited outside for Lily. When she emerged, still carrying her violin case, their mother swept her into a hug. "Oh, you were perfect," she said. Absolutely perfect. The judges loved you, their father added. I could see them taking notes. Good notes. Marcus ruffled her hair. Not bad, Squirt. Not bad at all. Lily was glowing. Really? You think it went okay? Better than okay, Sarah said. You were incredible. Mrs. Patterson said I rushed the second section a little. Mrs. Patterson wouldn't know talent if it slapped her, their mother said firmly. You were brilliant. They went out for lunch, a diner Lily liked, the kind with red vinyl booths and laminated menus. They ordered burgers and fries and milkshakes, celebrating like it was a major victory. And maybe it was. Not the performance itself, but the fact that they were all there, all present, all paying attention. Sarah's phone buzzed halfway through the meal. A text from Mrs. So Kowalski, hope you're feeling better. We can reschedule for next week. She showed the message to her mother. Are you sure you don't mind missing the session? Her mother asked. I know how important the SATs are to you. I'm sure, Sarah said. This was more important. Her mother smiled, a real smile, warm and surprised and pleased. You're growing up. I already grew up, Sarah wanted to say. I grew up and moved away and stopped calling and started treating holidays like obligations. I grew up and became someone you were proud of but didn't really know. But she just smiled back and said, I guess so. The next weeks passed in a strange blur. School resumed, the same classes she'd taken before, the same teachers, the same lessons she'd already learned. It was disorienting, sitting through lectures on concepts she'd mastered decades ago, pretending to take notes while her mind wandered. She aced every test without studying. Teachers started calling on her more, impressed by her sudden depth of understanding. Rachel, her lab partner, joked that the concussion had knocked her IQ up a few points. Maybe I should get hit by a car, Rachel said, and Sarah flinched. Don't. I'm kidding, obviously. Rachel looked at her strangely. Are you okay? You've been weird since the accident. Define weird. I don't know. Quieter. More thoughtful, I guess. Like you're thinking about something else all the time. Because she was. Thinking about the choices ahead. The path she'd followed before. The path she could follow now. She still planned to go to MIT. Still planned to study biology. To go into research. That part felt right. Felt essential to who she was. But maybe she could do it differently. Maybe she could maintain connections instead of burning bridges. Maybe she could let people in instead of walling them off. Marcus's basketball game was on a Friday night. Sarah had missed it in her first life. There had been a science Olympiad meeting, or maybe she'd had too much homework. She couldn't remember. But she remembered the aftermath. Marcus coming home elated because they'd won, because he'd scored the winning basket, and Sarah being too buried in her textbooks to care. This time, she went. The gymnasium smelled like sweat and floor polish. The bleachers were packed with students and parents, everyone cheering and stomping their feet. Sarah sat with her parents, her cast drawing sympathetic looks from people who'd heard about the accident. Marcus was number 23, taller than most of the other players, moving with a grace that would become even more pronounced in college. Sarah watched him play, really watched, not just glancing up between problem sets. She saw how he called plays, how he passed to teammates who had better shots, how he celebrated their successes as much as his own. He'd been a good kid, she realized, before life had hardened him, before the pressure of being the golden child had turned him cynical. He'd been generous and funny and kind. She'd forgotten that. Or maybe she'd never let herself see it. With 2 minutes left, the game was tied. Marcus had the ball, drove toward the basket, pulled up for a jump shot. The ball arced through the air, seeming to hang there forever, before dropping through the net with a satisfying swish. The crowd erupted. Sarah found herself on her feet, cheering along with everyone else. Her father was shouting. Her mother was crying again. She cried at everything, Sarah remembered. And Marcus was being mobbed by his teammates. After the game, they waited for him outside the locker room. When he emerged, sweaty and grinning, their father pulled him into a hug. That's my boy. That's my boy. Dad, you're embarrassing me. I don't care. That was incredible. Marcus's eyes found Sarah's over their father's shoulder. You came. Of course I came. You never come to my games. Well, I'm here now. Something shifted in his expression. Pleasure, surprise. The same look Lily had when Sarah had asked to hear her practice, like he'd been waiting for her to notice him and had half given up hope that she would. Thanks, he said. That means a lot. They went out for pizza. the whole family squeezing into a booth at the local place where the crusts were too thick and the cheese was too greasy and everything tasted perfect because they were together, celebrating, happy. Sarah watched them, her mother laughing at one of her father's terrible jokes, Marcus stealing fries from Lily's plate, Lily swatting his hand away, and felt something she couldn't quite name. Gratitude, maybe, or grief for all the moments like this she'd missed, all the times she'd chosen achievement over presence. "Sarah," her mother said, "you're doing it again?" "Doing what?" "Staring into space. Are you feeling all right? Should we call the doctor?" "I'm fine," Sarah said, then caught herself. "Actually, I'm better than fine. I'm happy," her mother blinked. "That's good. I'm glad." "Me too." The cast came off 6 weeks later. Just as predicted. Sarah flexed her fingers, marveling at how strange her arm looked. Pale and slightly atrophied, but whole. Free. She did the physical therapy exercises religiously, pushed herself to regain strength and mobility. Mrs. Kowalski asked why she wasn't coming to SAT prep anymore. "I don't think I need it," Sarah said, "but the test is in 2 months. I'll be fine." She was. She took the SAT in March, walked out knowing she'd aced it. The scores came back 6 weeks later, 1,600. Perfect. Her parents were thrilled, threw her a small celebration dinner, invited the extended family. Her uncle congratulated her, said she must be so proud. "MIT, here she comes." Sarah smiled and thanked him, but inside she felt nothing. She'd done this before, gotten the perfect score, gotten into MIT. It wasn't new. It wasn't surprising. It was just expected. What was new was the way Marcus high-fived her, genuine pride in his eyes. The way Lily made her a congratulations card, hand-drawn with a little caricature of Sarah surrounded by numbers. The way her parents kept telling anyone who would listen. "Our daughter got a perfect score. Can you believe it?" They'd been proud before, but this time she was present to receive it, present to feel it. And it mattered in a way it hadn't when she'd been already planning her next achievement, her next goal, her next rung up the ladder. College applications consumed the fall of her senior year. She applied to all the same schools: MIT, Stanford, Caltech, Princeton. Her essays were better this time, less focused on achievements and more on why she wanted to do the work. Her recommendations were stronger because she'd actually built relationships with her teachers instead of just being the smart kid in the front row. Acceptances arrived in the spring. All of them. Just like before. Full rides to most of them. Her family gathered in the living room as she opened the MIT envelope, even though they all knew what it would say. Lily was 15 now, taller, her hair cut short. Marcus was finishing his own college applications. Her parents looked older, not much, but enough that Sarah could see the gray creeping in, the lines deepening. "We are pleased to offer you admission." Sarah read aloud and the room erupted in cheers. But this time she wasn't sure she would accept. "MIT," her father said, hugging her. "My daughter's going to MIT." "Maybe," Sarah said. Everyone stopped, stared at her. Maybe," her mother repeated. "Sarah, it's MIT. It's the best." "I know, but Stanford offered a good package too. And Caltech. I'm still deciding." "Since when do you not have your mind made up?" Marcus asked. Since she knew what choosing MIT meant, the isolation, the pressure, the way she'd bury herself in work and forget to call home, forget to visit, forget that she had a family who loved her even if they didn't always understand what she was doing. "I want to make the right choice," Sarah said, "not just the obvious one." Her parents exchanged a look, confused, slightly worried. They'd expected her to be certain. She was always certain. "Well," her mother said carefully, "take your time. You don't have to decide right now." "Thanks." She chose MIT anyway, because despite everything, it was where she belonged, where the resources were, the faculty, the opportunities to do the work that mattered. But she chose it deliberately this time, with full knowledge of the costs. And she promised herself she would do it differently. Freshman orientation at MIT felt like déjà vu, the same speeches, the same icebreakers, the same nervous energy as hundreds of brilliant teenagers tried to figure out where they fit. Sarah moved through it with the strange confidence of someone who'd done it all before. She knew which professors to seek out, which classes would be worth the pain, which extracurriculars would actually matter versus which were resume padding. But this time, when her roommate, a computer science major from Oregon named Emma, invited her to a study group, Sarah said yes. When there was a party in the common room, She went for an hour instead of holing up in her room. When people asked if she wanted to grab dinner, she didn't always say she had too much work. It was exhausting. No one had warned her how much energy connection required. In her first life, she'd been able to focus completely on her studies, on her research, on the singular goal of excellence. Now she was trying to maintain friendships, to be present, to care about people's problems, and celebrate their successes, and it left her drained in ways she hadn't anticipated. "You okay?" Emma asked one night, finding Sarah face down on her bed at 9 p.m. "You've been weird lately." "Define weird." "I don't know, withdrawn, like you're here but not here." Sarah rolled over, stared at the ceiling. "I'm just tired." "You're always tired. Maybe you're trying to do too much?" Maybe. Or maybe she just wasn't built for this. The constant socializing. The effort of maintaining relationships. The expectation that she'd be available and present and interested all the time. In her first life, she'd figured out early that it was easier to be alone. No one's feelings to manage except her own. No one's needs to consider. Just her and her work. A clean and simple equation. But that had led to a different kind of exhaustion. The kind that crept up slowly over years, until she woke up one day and realized she had colleagues, but not friends. Achievements, but not happiness. A resume full of accomplishments and a life empty of meaning. "I'll figure it out," Sarah said. "You sure?" "No, but I'll try." She did try, went to Emma's computer science competitions, even though she didn't understand half of what was happening. Studied with her biology cohort even when she could have learned the material faster on her own. Called home once a week, talked to her mother about nothing important, listened to updates about Marcus's basketball season and Lily's audition for the youth symphony. It was hard, but it was worth it. Her research advisor was Dr. Patricia Morrison, brilliant, demanding, famous for her work in cellular biology. Sarah remembered her from before. The late-night calls, the impossible deadlines, the way she'd push Sarah to publish, to present, to make a name for herself. This time, when Dr. Morrison offered her a position in the lab, Sarah accepted but set boundaries. "I need Sundays off," she said. Dr. Morrison raised an eyebrow. "Sundays?" "For family. I call home on Sundays. Most students in this lab work 7 days a week. I'll work 6. "Oh, and I'll work hard, but I need one day." Dr. Morrison studied her for a long moment. "All right, but if your work suffers..." "It won't. It didn't." Sarah poured herself into the research. The same research that would eventually lead to her breakthrough, though she was careful not to get there too quickly, not to raise suspicions about how she knew what directions to pursue. She worked late nights and early mornings, balanced problem sets with lab work, somehow managed to maintain a 4.0 GPA while also having something resembling a life. But it was a constant negotiation, a constant choice. Go to Marcus's basketball game at Duke, or finish the experiment, fly home for Lily's concert, or prepare for her presentation. Call her mother, or work on her paper. She didn't always choose connection. Sometimes the work was too important. The deadline too close. But she chose it more often than before. And that had to count for something. Junior year, she started dating someone, a physics major named David, quiet and thoughtful, who liked hiking and bad science fiction movies. It wasn't serious. Wouldn't be serious. Sarah knew that with the certainty of foreknowledge. They'd date for 8 months, break up amicably when they realized they wanted different things, stay friendly enough to nod when they passed each other on campus. But it was nice while it lasted. Nice to have someone to go to movies with, to study alongside, to talk to about things that weren't biology or family, or the constant pressure of being exceptional. "You're different from most people here," David said one night, as they lay on the grass outside the library, staring up at the stars. "Well, different how?" "I don't know. Grounded, I guess. Like, you know what matters?" Sarah laughed. "I have no idea what matters." "Sure you do. You work hard, but you also make time for people. You're brilliant, but you're not an asshole about it. You're going to do amazing things." "I already did," Sarah thought, and it wasn't enough. But she just kissed him and said, "You're not so bad yourself." They broke up in April, just like she remembered. He wanted to move to California after graduation. She was staying for her PhD. It was logical, practical, the kind of ending that didn't require drama or recrimination. "Keep in touch," he said, and she promised she would. And they both knew it was a lie. Graduate school was different, more focused, more intense. The other students in her cohort were brilliant and driven and slightly unhinged in the way that came from choosing to spend your 20s in a lab instead of in the real world. Sarah fit right in. She published her first major paper at 24, 2 years ahead of schedule, though she was careful to make it look like luck and hard work rather than foreknowledge. It got attention, good attention. Suddenly, she was being invited to conferences, asked to speak, courted by research institutes and pharmaceutical companies. Dr. Morrison was proud. "I knew you had it in you," she said, as if there had ever been any doubt. "You're going to change the field, Sarah. I can feel it." Sarah smiled and thanked her, but inside she felt hollow. She'd done this before. The paper, the attention, the accolades. It was supposed to feel triumphant. Instead, it just felt inevitable. What mattered more was the call she got from her mother that same day. "I heard about your paper," her mother said. "From Aunt Linda, actually. She said she saw something about it online." "Oh, yeah, it got published." "That's wonderful, honey. I don't really understand what it's about. Something about cells? But I'm so proud of you." "Thanks, Mom. Your father wants to talk to you. Hold on." Her father came on the line, his voice warm with pride. "My daughter, the scientist. Are we going to have to call you Dr. Chen now?" "Not yet. I still have 2 more years before I defend." "Well, whenever you do, I'll be there, front row, even if I don't understand a word you're saying." Something in Sarah's chest tightened. "You don't have to." "Of course I have to. You're my daughter." In her first life, her parents hadn't come to her dissertation defense. They'd wanted to, but James had been in crisis again. Another failed business, another bout of depression, and they'd stayed home to support him. Sarah had told them it was fine, that she understood, that it wasn't a big deal, and she'd believed it. Or convinced herself she believed it, because that's what she did. Convinced herself she didn't need them, that their absence didn't hurt, that she was better off alone. "Thanks, Dad," she said quietly. "That means a lot." After she hung up, she sat in her apartment, small, cluttered with journals and coffee mugs, overlooking a parking lot that flooded when it rained, and let herself cry. Not from sadness, from relief maybe, or gratitude, or the sheer weight of having a second chance and trying so hard not to waste it. She defended her dissertation on a Tuesday in May, 3 days after her 27th birthday. The room was packed, her committee, other grad students, faculty from the biology department, and in the front row, her parents, both gray-haired now, wearing their best clothes like they were going to church. Marcus, who'd taken time off from his consulting job. Lily, who'd flown in from New York where she was playing with a chamber ensemble. Sarah looked at them before she began her presentation, and they waved. Her mother was already crying. The defense itself was straightforward. She knew the material inside and out, had lived it, breathed it, dreamed it for years in 2 different lifetimes. She answered every question with confidence, handled every challenge with grace. 2 hours later, it was over. "Congratulations, Doctor Ni Chen," the committee chair said, shaking her hand. Doctor. She was officially a doctor now. Again. The title felt no different than it had before, except this time, when she turned around, her family was there to see it. They took her out to dinner. A nice restaurant, nicer than they could really afford, the kind with cloth napkins and wine lists that required reading glasses. Her father ordered champagne. "To Sarah," he said, raising his glass. "The smartest person I know, and the bravest." "Bravest?" Sarah echoed. "For pursuing your dreams, for doing work most of us can't even begin to understand, for making the world a better place." They clinked glasses. The champagne was dry and expensive and perfect. "So what's next?" Marcus asked. "Big pharma? Academia?" "Research institute," Sarah said. "I've been offered a position at Whitmore. They're doing cutting-edge work in cellular therapy." "Whitmore," her mother said. "That's in Maryland, isn't it? Just outside D.C. That's so far. It was far. A 6-hour drive from Boston, where her parents had moved after they'd downsized when she'd left for college. Far enough that she wouldn't be able to visit on weekends, that holidays would require planning and coordination. In her first life, she'd taken the position without hesitation. Had moved to Maryland and thrown herself into the work, visiting home maybe twice a year, always with one eye on her phone, ready to leave early if an emergency came up at the lab. "It's not that far," Sarah said, "and I'll visit. I promise." "Of course you will," her mother said, but there was doubt in her eyes. Doubt earned from years of broken promises. Sort of good intentions that never materialized. Except those years hadn't happened yet. This time, Sarah could do better. "I mean it," she said. "First weekend of every month. I'll drive up. We can have dinner, catch up, whatever you want." Her mother's expression shifted. Surprise, hope, cautious optimism. "Really? Really? That would be wonderful." Lily cleared her throat. "Does that mean you'll actually come to my concert next month, instead of just saying you'll try and then canceling at the last minute?" Sarah winced. Had she done that? Of course she had. In the timeline that no longer existed, she'd done it all the time. Too busy, too important, too focused on her own life to make space for anyone else's. "I'll be there," she said. "Front row, you have my word." "I'm holding you to that." "Please do." Marcus raised his glass again. "Oh, to family," he said. "And to Sarah, who apparently got hit in the head hard enough to remember we exist." Everyone laughed, but Sarah felt the truth of it. She had forgotten, had let them fade into background noise while she pursued her singular vision of success. And it had taken dying, or nearly dying, or whatever had happened that night in the hospital, to remember what she'd lost. "To family," she repeated, and they all drank to that. The Whitmore Institute was everything Sarah remembered. State-of-the-art facilities, brilliant colleagues, resources that most researchers could only dream about. She settled into her new position, into her new life, with the eerie feeling of retracing old steps while trying to choose different paths. She kept her promise about visiting home. First weekend of every month, like clockwork. Sometimes she stayed the whole weekend. Sometimes just Saturday, driving back Sunday morning to get ready for the week. But she went. Every time. No excuses. Her mother started planning around her visits, making Sarah's favorite foods, inviting extended family, treating it like an event. Her father would have projects ready, the leaky faucet he needed help with, the computer acting up, small things that gave them an excuse to spend time together. Marcus didn't visit as often. He was in New York now, working brutal hours, climbing the corporate ladder. But when he did come home, Sarah made sure to be there. They'd sit up late talking, the way they used to before life got complicated, before success had driven wedges between them. Lily was the hardest to keep up with. Her career was taking off, performances across the country, then Europe, then Asia. But Sarah made it to shows when she could, flew to New York for opening nights, sent flowers when she couldn't make it, called afterward to hear how it went. "You're different," Lily said once, after a performance in D.C. that Sarah had attended. They were having drinks at a hotel bar, still in their nice clothes. "More present." "Is that bad?" "No, it's good. It's just different. You used to be so focused on your work that everything else was just peripheral, including us. I'm sorry." "Don't be sorry. Just keep being like this. Keep showing up." "I will." And she did. Through the years that followed, as her research progressed, as she made breakthrough after breakthrough, as her reputation grew, she kept showing up, for birthdays and holidays and random Tuesdays when someone needed her, for Lily's wedding to a cellist named David, who seemed nice enough, for Marcus's promotion celebrations, even when she had to fly across the country for them, for her parents' 40th anniversary party, which she helped plan and coordinate and execute. She didn't get it right every time. There were still moments when work had to come first, when deadlines were non-negotiable, when she had to choose between her career and her connections. But she chose differently more often than not. And it made a difference. It made all the difference. The breakthrough came when she was 39, in the middle of a freezing February. Sarah had been working on targeted cellular therapy for years. The same research that had consumed her first life, except this time she was approaching it from a slightly different angle, incorporating insights she'd gained the first time around while being careful not to raise red flags. The eureka moment happened at 3 a.m. on a Wednesday, just like before. She was staring at imaging results, at the way the modified T cells were attacking cancer tissue while leaving healthy cells alone. And she saw it, the pattern, the key, the thing that would change everything. She called her research partner, a brilliant immunologist named Dr. James Patterson, and he came in even though it was the middle of the night. They ran the experiment again, and again, and again. It worked every time. "Holy shit," Patterson said, staring at the results. "Sarah, do you realize what this means?" She did. She'd realized it before, had lived through the moment when they'd cracked it. They had experienced the rush of knowing they'd done something that would save lives, that would change the trajectory of cancer treatment forever. But this time felt different. This time, she looked at the data and thought about her mother, who'd been diagnosed with early-stage breast cancer 2 years ago and had beaten it. About Marcus's college roommate, who died of leukemia at 28. About all the people who would benefit from this, who would live because of this work. "We need to publish," she said. They spent the next 6 months preparing the paper, running additional trials, documenting everything with excruciating precision. The paper came out in Nature in September, accompanied by a press release from Whitmore about the potential implications. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Interview requests, speaking invitations, calls from pharmaceutical companies offering funding. Her inbox exploded. Her phone wouldn't stop ringing. And through it all, her family called to say congratulations. "I don't understand half of what the article says," her mother admitted, "but I know it's important. I know you're helping people." "That's the idea. I'm so proud of you, sweetheart. Your father and I both are. We're telling everyone." Sarah smiled, even though her mother couldn't see it. "Thanks, Mom. When can we see you next? It's been almost a month." It had been. Sarah had skipped the last visit because of the paper deadline, the first time she'd missed in nearly 10 years. "I'll come next weekend," Sarah said. "I promise." "Bring someone," her mother said. "You work too hard. You should be dating." "Mom, I'm serious. You're 40 years old, 39. And you're brilliant and beautiful, and you spend all your time in a lab. When was the last time you went on a date?" Too long. Sarah couldn't remember. There had been a few relationships over the years. Nothing serious, nothing that lasted. She'd told herself she didn't have time, that her work was too important, that she didn't need romance to be fulfilled. But the truth was more complicated. The truth was she was afraid of losing focus, of letting someone in too close, of repeating the patterns from her first life where she'd chosen isolation over vulnerability. "I'll work on it," Sarah said. "You always say that." "This time I mean it," her mother laughed. "I love you, honey, even if you're hopeless." "Love you too." The awards started rolling in. First the smaller ones, recognition from professional societies, teaching awards, grants, and fellowships. Then the bigger ones. The Lasker Award, the Breakthrough Prize. Each one came with ceremonies and speeches and photographs. And each time, Sarah made sure her family knew they were welcome. Not all of them could come every time. Marcus was busy with his own career. Lily had performances. Her parents were getting older. Traveling was harder. But they tried. More often than not, at least one family member was there in the audience when she accepted an award, applauding along with everyone else. It mattered. God, it mattered. Standing on stage, looking out at the crowd and seeing her mother's face, or Marcus's, or Lily's, knowing they'd made the effort, taken the time, chosen to be there. The Nobel Prize was announced in October, 2 years after the Nature paper. Sarah was in her office when the call came. Early morning, she'd been expecting it, had dreamed about this moment in both lifetimes. "Dr. Chen, this is the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences." She listened to the formal congratulations, the explanation of the prize committee's decision, the logistics of the ceremony in Stockholm. She said all the right things, expressed appropriate gratitude and humility, promised to attend the December ceremony. When she hung up, she sat in her office and stared at the wall. Nobel Prize, the pinnacle of scientific achievement, the thing she'd worked toward her entire adult life, in both lifetimes. Her phone buzzed. Text from her mother. "I heard the news. I'm so proud. Call me when you can," Sarah called. Her mother answered on the first ring, crying and laughing at the same time. "A Nobel Prize! My daughter is winning a Nobel Prize!" "I haven't won it yet. The ceremony isn't until December. Don't be modest. This is incredible. Your father is here. We're just so proud. So incredibly proud." Her father got on the line. "You did it, Sarah. You actually did it." She had done it. In both lives. But this time felt different. This time, she had people to share it with. "Will you come?" she asked, "to Stockholm for the ceremony?" "Of course we'll come. We wouldn't miss it for the world." "What about Marcus? And Lily?" "I'll call them right now. They'll want to be there." They would. Sarah knew they would, because she'd built those relationships, maintained those connections, showed up when it mattered. because she'd chosen differently this time. Thanks. Mom. For what? For being there, for caring, for... Her voice cracked. For everything? Oh, honey, of course, always. You're our daughter, we love you. I love you too. After she hung up, Sarah sat in her office for a long time, letting the news sink in. Nobel Prize, the same prize she'd won before. But somehow it meant more this time, meant something beyond just validation of her work. Meant she could be excellent and connected, successful and loved. That she didn't have to choose. The Nobel ceremony in Stockholm was everything Sarah remembered, formal and overwhelming and strangely surreal. She wore a gown her mother helped her pick out, dark blue silk that caught the light when she moved. Her entire family came. Parents, Marcus with his wife and 2 kids, Lily with her husband. They sat together in the audience as Sarah walked across the stage, shook the King of Sweden's hand, accepted the medal and diploma. She gave her speech about cellular therapy and the future of cancer treatment, about all the people who'd supported her research, about hope. When it was over, when the applause had faded and the ceremony had concluded, her family was there, waiting. Her mother was crying again. Of course. Her father was beaming. Marcus had his phone out taking pictures. Lily was grinning like she'd won the prize herself. Group photo? Lily insisted, waving over a photographer. They crowded together. 3 generations, all dressed in their finest, Sarah still holding her Nobel medal, and smiled for the camera. That photo would end up on her mother's mantle, would be the first thing visitors saw when they entered the house. Sarah would see it every time she visited, a reminder of this moment, this choice, this second chance she'd somehow been given. 3 years later, the call came. Sarah was in her office, reviewing grant proposals, when her assistant knocked on the door. Dr. Chen, there's someone from the White House on the phone. Sarah's hand stilled on the mouse. She knew what this was, had lived through this moment before, though the timing was slightly different. In her first life, she'd been 47 when they'd called. Now she was 45. Small changes rippling forward. Put them through, she said. The voice on the other end was professional, courteous, efficient. Dr. Chen, I'm calling to inform you that you've been selected to receive the Presidential Medal of Science. President Williams would like to personally present it to you at a ceremony in 2 months. Are you available? Presidential Medal of Science, the highest honor the United States could bestow on a scientist, the culmination of everything she'd worked for. Yes, Sarah said. I'm available. The logistics followed. Dates, times, security clearances, guest lists. Sarah could bring 10 people. In her first life, she'd struggled to find 10 people to invite. Had ended up bringing colleagues and mentors because her family had been too busy. This time, the guest list filled itself. Parents, Marcus and his family, Lily and her husband, a few close colleagues, people who mattered. We'll send more details via email, the White House staffer said. Congratulations, Dr. Chen. This is a tremendous achievement. Thank you. After she hung up, Sarah sat back in her chair and closed her eyes. Presidential Medal of Science, the award she'd accepted alone before, smiling for cameras while her heart felt empty. The award that had made her realize too late that all her success meant nothing without people to share it with. This time would be different. She called her mother first. Presidential Medal of Science, her mother repeated, her voice awed. Sarah, that's incredible. When is it? 2 months. May 15th. I can bring guests. I want you and Dad there. Of course we'll be there. We wouldn't miss it. What about Marcus? He said something about a conference in Singapore. I'll talk to him. He'll move it. Mom, I don't want him to... Sarah, this is the Presidential Medal of Science from the President of the United States. He'll move the conference. Sarah smiled. Okay. And Lily? I'll call her next. Good, this is so exciting. My daughter, meeting the president, I need to buy a new dress. Your father needs a new suit. Oh my God, there's so much to do. Mom, breathe. I'm breathing. I'm so proud of you, sweetheart. So incredibly proud. I know. Thank you. She called Lily next, then Marcus. Both promised to be there, to move whatever needed to be moved to make it work, because it was important, because she'd shown up for them over and over, and now they were showing up for her. It should have felt triumphant. And it did mostly, but there was also something bittersweet about it. The knowledge of what had come before, of the ceremony she'd attended alone, of all the years she'd spent convinced that solitary excellence was enough. Sarah spent the next 2 months preparing. Wow, the speech she'd give, the people she'd thank, the press interviews and photo shoots and endless logistics. It was exhausting and exhilarating and familiar in the strangest way. A week before the ceremony, her mother called. "I have a question," she said, "and I want you to be honest." "Okay. Are you happy?" Sarah blinked. "What? Are you happy? You've achieved so much. You're brilliant and successful and respected. But are you happy?" The question hung in the air. In her first life, the answer would have been no. She'd been successful but lonely, accomplished but hollow. She'd had everything she'd worked for and nothing that truly mattered. "Yes," Sarah said now, and meant it. "I am." "Good. That's all I wanted to know." "Why do you ask?" "Because sometimes I worry. You work so hard. You've sacrificed so much." "I just want to make sure it's worth it." "It is. Because I have you. All of you. And that makes everything else worthwhile." Her mother's voice softened. "I love you, sweetheart." "Love you too, Mom." The day of the ceremony arrived with perfect May weather, clear skies, gentle breeze, the kind of day that felt made for celebrations. Sarah dressed carefully in a tailored suit her mother had helped her pick out, navy blue with subtle pinstripes. Professional. Presidential. Her family met her at the hotel. Her parents, older now, her father using a cane after his hip replacement, her mother's hair completely gray. Marcus and his wife, their kids dressed up like they were going to a fancy wedding. Lily and her husband, both exhausted from flying in from a tour in Japan, but smiling anyway. They all piled into cars, official cars, black SUVs with tinted windows and drivers who knew exactly where they were going. The kids were excited, asking questions about the White House, about the president, about whether there would be a big medal. "Will it be gold?" Sarah's nephew asked. "I think so," Sarah said. "Cool." The White House was exactly as Sarah remembered, imposing and beautiful. History in every stone. They went through security, were escorted through corridors lined with portraits of past presidents, past achievements, past moments of national significance. And then they were in the East Room, where the ceremony would take place. Rows of chairs faced a small stage with a podium bearing the presidential seal. Other honorees were there with their families. Scientists, engineers, researchers who'd made contributions to their fields. Sarah found her seat in the front row. Her family sat behind her, her mother reaching forward to squeeze her shoulder. "You've got this," her mother whispered. The ceremony began. The president entered. President Williams, the first female president, charismatic and sharp in a way that made everyone sit up straighter. She gave a speech about the importance of science, about the heroes who dedicate their lives to advancing human knowledge, about the responsibility to support and celebrate these achievements. Then the medals were presented, one by one. Each scientist was called forward, their work summarized in a brief paragraph that could never capture the years of effort, the countless failures, the moments of breakthrough. "Dr. Sarah Chen," the president's voice rang out, "for her groundbreaking work in cellular therapy and her contributions to cancer treatment that have saved thousands of lives and opened new frontiers in medical research." Sarah stood, walked to the stage on legs that felt steadier than they had in her first life. The president smiled, warm and genuine, and placed the medal around Sarah's neck. It was heavy, gold just like her nephew had hoped. "Congratulations, Dr. Chen," the president said, shaking her hand. "Your work is truly remarkable." "Thank you, Madam President." They posed for photographs. Sarah and the president, Sarah alone with her medal, Sarah with the other honorees. And then, at the president's invitation, family photos. Sarah's family rushed forward, her mother crying again, her father beaming with pride, Marcus and Lily and their spouses and children, all crowding around her, touching the medal, asking to see it up close. The White House photographer captured it all. The chaos, the joy, the love. Sarah standing in the center of her family, the Presidential Medal of Science gleaming at her throat, surrounded by the people who mattered most. This was what she'd missed before. This moment, this connection, this feeling of being seen and celebrated not just as a scientist, but as a daughter, a sister, an aunt, as someone who belonged. The reception afterward was held in the state dining room. Champagne and hors d'oeuvres, networking with other honorees, small talk with White House staffers. Sarah moved through it all with her family close by, making introductions, explaining her work in terms her parents could understand. Oh, watching Lily charm a senator and Marcus discuss policy with someone from the National Science Foundation. At one point, she found herself alone on a balcony overlooking the rose garden. The party continued inside, muffled by glass and distance. She touched the metal at her throat, heavy and real and earned. "There you are." Sarah turned. Her mother stepped out onto the balcony, closing the door behind her to muffle the noise. "Just needed a minute," Sarah said. "I understand. It's overwhelming." Her mother joined her at the railing, looking out at the garden. "Beautiful, isn't it?" "Yeah." They stood in comfortable silence. Sarah's mother had aged well, gray hair, but still bright eyes, wrinkles that came from smiling more than frowning. She looked happy, proud, content. "I wanted to tell you something," her mother said. Something I should have said a long time ago." "What's that?" "I'm sorry," Sarah frowned. "For what?" "For all the times I wasn't there, for all the times I prioritized your siblings' problems over your achievements, for making you feel like you had to be perfect and independent because we were too busy dealing with crises." The words hit Sarah like a physical blow, because her mother was apologizing for things that hadn't happened in this timeline, things that had happened before in another life, but not here, not now. "Mom, let me finish. You were always so self-sufficient, so capable. You never needed us, or at least you never seemed to need us, so we let you handle things on your own. And that wasn't fair. You deserved our attention as much as Marcus or Lily or James. You deserved to have us show up. You did show up. You're here now. Because you made sure we were. Because you kept visiting, kept calling, kept making space for us in your life even when we didn't always make space for you." Her mother's voice cracked. "I see the effort you put in, the way you prioritize us, and I'm grateful, and I'm sorry it took me so long to do the same." Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. "You don't have to apologize. I do, because you shouldn't have had to work so hard for our attention. You should have had it automatically. Mom." Sarah pulled her into a hug, careful not to crush her, feeling how small her mother had become, how fragile. "It's okay. We're okay. Today, this is everything I wanted." Her mother hugged her back, tight and fierce. "You've done such amazing things, Sarah. I'm so proud of who you've become. Not just the scientist, but the person." The daughter, the sister, you're extraordinary." They pulled apart, both wiping at their eyes. "Thank you," Sarah whispered. "For what?" "For being here, for caring, for—" Sarah gestured helplessly. "For everything." Her mother smiled through her tears. "Always, sweetheart. Always." They went back inside together, back to the party, back to the family waiting for them. Marcus was showing his kids the portraits lining the walls. Lily was deep in conversation with another honoree. Her father was sitting in a chair, resting his hip but looking content. This was worth it. All of it. The second chance, the effort, the constant negotiation between achievement and connection. Worth it for moments like this. The rest of the day passed in a blur of congratulations and photographs and conversations Sarah would barely remember later. What she would remember was her family, her father's hand on her shoulder, Marcus's genuine pride, Lily's enthusiastic retelling of the ceremony to everyone who would listen, her mother's tears. They had dinner together that night, all of them, crowding into a restaurant that probably wasn't fancy enough for people who'd just come from the White House but felt right anyway. They ordered too much food, told embarrassing childhood stories, laughed until they cried. Sarah's nephew, 10 years old and brutally honest, asked, "Are you, really famous now?" "I don't know. Maybe." "Cool. Can I tell my friends my aunt met the president?" "Sure. Double cool." Marcus raised his glass. "To Sarah, who managed to become brilliant, successful, and emotionally available all at the same time. We didn't think it was possible." "Shut up," Sarah said. But she was smiling. "Seriously, though, we're proud of you, not just for the medal or the Nobel Prize or any of that. For being here, for showing up, for being part of our lives even when it would have been easier to just not." "It wouldn't have been easier," Sarah said quietly. "It would have been lonelier." "Well, either way, we're glad you chose us." They clinked glasses, champagne for the adults, sparkling cider for the kids, and drank to that. Later, much later, Sarah walked her parents back to their hotel room. They moved slowly, tired from the long day, but happy. Her father leaned on his cane. Her mother leaned on Sarah. "This was a good day," her father said. "The best," her mother agreed. They reached the room. Her father unlocked the door, but her mother paused before going in. "Sarah? Well, one more thing." "Yeah?" "Keep doing this. Keep living. Keep connecting. The work is important, but you're more important. Don't forget that." "I won't." "Promise?" "I promise." Her mother kissed her cheek. "Good. Now go get some sleep. You've had a long day." Sarah hugged them both, said goodnight, watched them disappear into their room. Then she walked back through the hotel corridors to her own room, the medal still around her neck, heavy with meaning. She didn't take it off until she was ready for bed, set it carefully on the nightstand, where it gleamed in the lamplight. Presidential Medal of Science, the highest honor, the thing she'd worked 2 lifetimes to achieve. But it wasn't the medal that mattered, it was the people who'd been there to see her receive it. The family who'd made the effort, taken the time, chosen to celebrate with her. Sarah turned off the light and lay in the darkness, thinking about choices. About the path she'd followed before and the path she was on now. About the cost of excellence and the value of connection. About all the things she'd learned or relearned or was still learning. She'd spent her first life proving she was worthy through achievement. Spent years accumulating accolades and awards and recognition, building a resume that should have made her happy but left her hollow. This time, she'd learned something different. That worth wasn't something you earned through excellence. It was something you claimed through presence, through showing up, through letting people see you struggle and succeed and fail and try again, through being human, not perfect. She thought about her mother's apology, so about the guilt in her voice, about all the ways they'd failed each other in a timeline that no longer existed, about how they were doing better now, both of them, because Sarah had chosen differently. Not perfectly. There were still moments she got it wrong. Still times when work took precedence, still relationships she'd let slide. But she was trying, and that had to count for something. Her phone buzzed. A text from Lily. "Today was amazing. Love you. So proud to be your sister." Sarah typed back, "Love you too. Thanks for being there. Always, always." A promise, a choice, a commitment to keep showing up, keep trying, keep being present. Sarah set down her phone and closed her eyes. Tomorrow she'd fly home, back to Maryland, back to her lab and her research, and the work that would continue to consume her days. But she'd also call her mother on Sunday, visit home in 2 weeks, make time for Lily's next concert, Marcus's next milestone, her nieces and nephews' next achievements. She'd keep choosing connection, keep choosing presence, keep choosing to be seen and known and loved for who she was, not just what she'd accomplished. And maybe that was the real award. Not the medal or the Nobel Prize or any external validation, but the internal knowledge that she was building a life worth living. A life full of meaning and connection and love. A life where she showed up. 6 months later, Sarah was in her lab when her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. She was in the middle of an experiment, focused, deep in the work that still consumed her even after all the accolades. But something made her pick up. "Doctor." "Yi Chen?" A voice she didn't recognize. Young. Nervous. "My name is Jessica Park. I'm a graduate student at MIT, and I wanted to call and thank you." Sarah frowned. "Thank me for what?" "For your work. For your research. For..." The girl's voice broke. "My mom had stage 4 ovarian cancer. The doctor said there was nothing they could do, but then she got into a trial for your cellular therapy treatment, and it worked. It actually worked. She's in remission now. She's gonna make it." Sarah sat down, her legs suddenly unsteady. "And I needed you to know that your work, what you do, it matters. It saved my mom. It saved my family. So thank you. Thank you so much." Sarah's voice came out rough. "I'm so glad it helped. That's wonderful news. I'm going into medical research because of you. Because I want to do what you do. Make a difference. Save lives. Give other families the chance we got." After Jessica hung up, Sarah sat in her lab for a long time staring at her equipment, her notes, the evidence of all the work she'd done and still had left to do. This was why. This was the point. Not the awards or recognition or validation from peers, but the lives saved, the families kept whole, the ripple effects of work done well. She thought about her first life, when she'd received similar calls and felt nothing, when she'd been so disconnected from the human impact of her research that it had become abstract, theoretical, just another line on her CV. This time, she let herself feel it. The weight, the responsibility, the privilege of doing work that mattered. And she thought about the ceremony 6 months ago, about her family in the audience, about her mother's tears and Marcus's pride and Lily's joy, about the choice she'd made to let them in, to share her successes, to be present in their lives so they could be present in hers. She picked up her phone, called her mother. "Hi, honey," her mother answered. "Everything okay?" "Yeah, everything's fine. I wanted to tell you something." "What's that?" "I got a call today from a graduate student whose mom's life was saved by my research, and I realized I couldn't have done this without you. Without Dad, without all of you, your support, your presence, it made all the difference." "Oh, sweetheart, we didn't do anything. That was all you." "No, it wasn't. I mean, yes, I did the work, but you gave me the foundation to do it from. You showed up. You cared. Oh, you made me feel like I mattered beyond just my achievements, and that kept me grounded, kept me human, kept me focused on why the work matters." Her mother was quiet for a moment, then, "I'm glad we could be there for you." "Me too. I just wanted you to know that it meant something, that you mean something, that I couldn't have done any of this without you. I love you, Sarah." "I love you too, Mom." After she hung up, Sarah went back to her work. But it felt different now, not like a burden or an obligation or a ladder to climb, just like work, important work, work that mattered, work that she chose to do every day, while also choosing to show up for the people she loved. Both things could be true: excellence and connection, achievement and presence. She didn't have to choose one or the other. She could choose both. And that made all the difference. Years passed, Sarah continued her research, continued to make breakthroughs, continued to save lives. She won more awards, gave more speeches, became one of the most respected scientists in her field. But she also showed up for Sunday dinners and birthday parties and school plays, for Marcus's kids' graduations and Lily's anniversary concerts and her parents' increasingly quiet evenings. She made time, made space, made the effort. Her father passed away when she was 53, peacefully, in his sleep, surrounded by family. Sarah took a month off work, helped her mother sort through his things, sat Shiva even though they weren't Jewish because it gave them an excuse to gather, to remember, to grieve together. "He was so proud of you," her mother said, going through old photographs. "He kept every article about your work, every mention in the news, had them all in a scrapbook." Sarah hadn't known that. "Really?" "Really. He didn't always understand what you were doing, but he knew it was important. And he knew you were important. Never stopped telling people about his daughter, the scientist." Sarah held the photographs. Her father young and strong, her father old and frail, her father in between, living a life full of ordinary moments that added up to something extraordinary. "I'm going to miss him," she whispered. "Me too, honey. Me too." They held each other and cried, and Sarah was grateful she'd been there. Grateful she'd visited often enough to really know him in his later years. Grateful she'd shown up. Life continued. Marcus's kids went to college, started careers, got married. Lily's quartet disbanded, but she started teaching, passing on her love of music to the next generation. Sarah's mother downsized to a smaller apartment, started volunteering at a local hospital, found new purpose in her retirement. And Sarah kept working, kept researching, kept pushing the boundaries of what was possible in cellular therapy. But she also kept living, kept connecting, kept being present. She dated occasionally, nothing serious, nothing that lasted, but nice moments with nice people. She traveled when she could, took sabbaticals to visit places she'd always wanted to see. She mentored graduate students, helped them navigate the same challenges she'd faced, encouraged them to build lives and not just careers. She was, in her own way, happy. Not the desperate happiness of someone trying to prove something, not the hollow satisfaction of achievement without connection, but the quiet, steady happiness of someone living a life that felt right. That felt whole. That felt worth living. On her 60th birthday, her family threw her a party. Not anything fancy, just a backyard barbecue at Marcus's house with too much food and too many people and chaos everywhere. Sarah sat in a lawn chair watching it all unfold. Her nieces and nephews running around shrieking with laughter. Marcus at the grill, arguing with Lily about the proper way to cook a burger. Her mother holding Marcus's youngest grandchild, cooing at the baby with such joy it made Sarah's heart ache. This was family. Messy and loud and imperfect, but real. Present here. Lily came over, handed her a beer. Happy birthday? Old lady? I'm not old. You're 60. 60 is the new 40. Sure it is. Lily settled into the chair next to her. How does it feel? What? Being 60. Having achieved everything you wanted to achieve. Saved thousands of lives. Changed the world. How does it feel? Sarah thought about it. About her career, her accomplishments, her legacy, about all the awards gathering dust in her office, the papers published, the lives changed, about the path she'd followed. Twice now, each time differently. It feels good, she said finally, not because of the achievements, but because I get to share it with all of you. Lily raised her beer bottle. To family. To family, Sarah echoed. They clinked bottles and drank, and Sarah felt it again, that sense of rightness, of being exactly where she was supposed to be, but with exactly who she was supposed to be with. The sun set slowly, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Marcus brought out the cake, chocolate, Sarah's favorite, homemade by his wife. They sang happy birthday off-key and enthusiastic. Sarah blew out the candles and made a wish. Let this last, she wished. Let me remember to keep showing up, keep being present, keep choosing connection. She didn't know if wishes worked, didn't know if she'd been given her second chance through divine intervention or cosmic accident, or just sheer luck. Didn't know if she'd wake up tomorrow still 60 or find herself 16 again, starting over once more. But she knew this. She'd made different choices. She'd built a different life, and it had been worth it. Every difficult conversation, every flight home when she was exhausted, every time she'd chosen presence over convenience, worth it. Because in the end, excellence without connection was just noise. Achievement without love was just emptiness. Success without family was just nothing. She'd learned that the hard way. But she'd learned. And she was grateful. The final award ceremony came when Sarah was 65, on the verge of retirement. A Lifetime Achievement Award from the National Academy of Sciences, recognizing her decades of contributions to medical research. It was smaller than the Presidential Medal ceremony, fewer people, less fanfare, but Sarah's family filled the front row. Her mother, fragile but determined. Marcus and his whole family, Lily and her husband, nieces and nephews who were adults now, starting their own careers, building their own lives. Sarah gave her speech, not about her achievements, but about the importance of balance, of pursuing excellence while maintaining humanity, of changing the world while staying connected to the people you love. I've been fortunate, she said, looking out at the audience, at her family in the front row. Not just because my research succeeded, but because I had people who supported me, who showed up, who reminded me that I was more than my work. Her mother was crying. Of course, I hope, Sarah continued, that the next generation of scientists will learn what took me far too long to understand, that you can be brilliant and connected, excellent and present, that you don't have to choose between achievement and love. You can have both. You should have both. The applause was warm and genuine. Sarah accepted the award, another medal, another certificate, another addition to her collection of recognitions. But what mattered was what came after. Her family rushed the stage, enveloping her in hugs and congratulations. Her mother held her face in both hands, kissed her forehead. "I'm so proud of you," she whispered. "For everything, not just this, for everything." "I know, Mom. Thank you. Thank you for being here, for always being here." They took the obligatory photographs. Sarah and her family, Sarah and her colleagues, Sarah alone with her award. But the one she'd frame, the one she'd keep on her desk for the rest of her life, was the candid shot someone captured. Sarah surrounded by her family, mid-laugh, the award forgotten on a nearby table, everyone leaning into each other with the easy comfort of people who knew they belonged together. That night, at dinner, Marcus raised his glass one more time. "To Sarah," he said, "who taught us that it's possible to reach for the stars and keep your feet on the ground, who showed us that brilliance and humanity aren't opposites, who proved that you can change the world and still show up for Sunday dinner." "Hear, hear," Lily added. Sarah looked around the table at her family, older now, gray-haired and wrinkled, but still here, still present, still choosing each other, and felt a wave of emotion so strong it took her breath away. This was what mattered. This, right here. Not the awards or the accolades or the recognition, but the people, the connections, the choice to keep showing up over and over even when it was hard. "Thank you," she said quietly. "All of you. For being here, for being my family, for..." Her voice broke. "What, for seeing me?" "Always," her mother said. "Always," the others echoed. They raised their glasses and drank to that. To always. To family, to presence, to choosing connection. Sarah Chen retired at 67, ending a career that had spanned decades and changed the landscape of cancer treatment. Her last day at the lab was bittersweet, saying goodbye to colleagues, packing up her office, leaving behind the work that had consumed so much of her life. But she wasn't sad, because she had plans. She was moving closer to her mother, who was 89 and getting frail. She was going to volunteer, mentor young scientists, maybe write a book about her research. She was going to spend time with her family, watch her grandnieces and grandnephews grow up, be present for all the small moments she'd almost missed. She was going to live, really live, not just exist between achievements. On her last evening at the lab, she stood in her empty office and looked around. The walls were bare, the desk clear, nothing left but memories and the ghost of work done. Her phone buzzed. A text from Lily. "Dinner tomorrow? Mom wants to celebrate your retirement." Sarah smiled and typed back, "I'll be there." She turned off the lights, locked the door for the last time, and walked out into the evening. The sky was clear, stars just beginning to appear. Somewhere, someone was benefiting from her research. Somewhere, a family was staying whole because of work she'd done. That would be her legacy, not the awards or the papers or the recognition, but the lives saved, the ripples spreading outward, the impact that would last long after she was gone, and the relationships she'd built. The family she'd chosen over and over, the presence she'd maintained. Sarah got in her car and drove home, and the whole way there, she felt nothing but gratitude. For second chances, for choices, for the wisdom to know that excellence and connection weren't enemies but partners, for the courage to show up, even when it was hard. For all of it. Sarah Chen died peacefully at 83, surrounded by family in a hospice room that smelled like lavender and sunshine. Her mother had passed 5 years earlier. Her body had started failing in small ways, her heart, her joints, her memory. But she'd lived well, loved well, been present until the very end. In her final moments, drifting in and out of consciousness, she thought about the 2 lives she'd lived. The first one, brilliant and lonely. The second one, brilliant and full. She thought about the choice she'd made, to let her family ignore that first award ceremony, to stop begging for their attention, to build a life worth showing up for instead of demanding they show up for achievements they didn't understand. She thought about the presidential medal ceremony, about seeing her family in the audience, about the joy on their faces, about finally understanding that worth didn't come from external validation, but from internal peace. She thought about all the moments in between, the Sunday dinners and birthday parties, the late-night phone calls and spontaneous visits, the choices made over and over to be present, to show up, to stay connected. "We're here," Marcus's voice from far away. "We're all here, Sarah." She opened her eyes. Her family crowded around her bed. Marcus and Lily, their spouses, their children, their children's children. 3 generations. All here because she'd taught them through example the importance of showing up. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" Lily asked, tears streaming down her face. "For being here, for..." Sarah struggled for breath. "For seeing me." "Always," Marcus said, his voice breaking. "We always saw you." Maybe they had. Maybe they hadn't. Maybe it didn't matter anymore. What mattered was this. She'd lived 2 lifetimes, and only in the second one had she truly understood what it meant to be successful. Not the awards or achievements, but the connections, the presence, the love. She'd gotten her second chance, and she'd used it well. Sarah Chen closed her eyes for the last time, surrounded by family, and felt nothing but peace. She'd shown up, and they'd shown up for her. And in the end, that was everything. Years after Sarah's death, her grandniece, a biology student at MIT, following in her great-aunt's footsteps, was writing a paper on Sarah's life and legacy. She found boxes of photographs in her grandmother Lily's attic, images spanning decades. Sarah at 16 with a cast on her arm, Sarah at her dissertation defense, Sarah at the Nobel Prize ceremony, Sarah receiving the Presidential Medal of Science. But the photograph that stuck with her was the candid one from Sarah's 60th birthday. Sarah in a lawn chair, beer in hand, surrounded by family, not performing excellence, not proving worth, just being, present, there. The student looked at that photograph for a long time, trying to understand the woman her family spoke of with such reverence, the brilliant scientist who changed the world. Though the aunt who never missed a birthday, the sister who always showed up. She thought about her own life, the pressure to achieve, to excel, to be perfect, the way she sometimes let her work consume her, the way she sometimes forgot to call home, the way she sometimes prioritized achievement over connection. And she thought about what Sarah had said in her final speech, the one that had gone viral years ago. You don't have to choose between achievement and love. You can have both. You should have both. The student closed the box of photographs, made a note to call her mother, and returned to her work. But she remembered. And that was Sarah's real legacy, not the breakthrough treatments or the prestigious awards or the papers that changed the field, but the lesson passed down through generations. So that excellence meant nothing without humanity, that achievement without connection was just noise, that showing up, really showing up with presence and intention and love was the highest honor of all. The Presidential Medal of Science gleamed in its display case at the Smithsonian, a testament to a life well lived. But Sarah's family knew the truth. The real medal was the one you earned by showing up, by being present, by choosing connection, over and over and over again, until it became not a choice but a way of life. That was the award that mattered. That was the honor worth receiving. And Sarah Chen had earned it.